But I want to say to you that those places where God is moving, you will always find in those places a people of prayer. There are places that are of the hidden peoples where nobody else knows about them. And God is mightily at work sending revival to His church. There's a place in the northeastern part of India called Nagaland. Now, if you know what a map of India looks like, it's kind of like this. And then off to the right-hand side up in the far northern corner, there's something that looks like a little tumor that shoots out in the far eastern part of India. There's this area called Nagaland. It is the most evangelical area of the world. 95% of the people have been born again. They've had 2 major revivals to take place in Nagaland in the last 50 years. In 1987, I was with 2 young people from Nagaland, and I asked them, I said, tell me about the revival. What's the characteristic of the revival? And they said, Sammy, our churches are different from your churches. I said, in what way? They said, we have a sanctuary like you have a sanctuary. But next to our sanctuary, there's a small little room, a small building. And in that room, 24 hours a day, you will find people praying and fasting and seeking the face of God in that room. I have a pastor friend in Hyderabad. Hyderabad is a Muslim city in the center of India. His name is Pastor Samuel, pastor of the Hyderabad Baptist Church, and I preached the 25th anniversary of his church. He started it. He went to Hyderabad, to this Muslim city. If you know anything about Islam, it's tough. He went to Hyderabad. He started this church. And before he started the church, when he and his wife got married, they went up to Nagaland, and they spent a year of internship in Nagaland. And they learned the ways of the Nagas. And so when they came to start the church, the Hyderabad Baptist Church in Hyderabad, India, they decided that they would do it the way they had done it in Nagaland, that prayer would be a priority, and that they would build not just a people, but they would build a people of prayer. And so they made prayer a priority. He started that church in this very difficult area of India. In 25 years, that church grew to 6,000 members. They had 60 missions, and those missions ran up to 500 people in those missions. And God was moving and working in that church. And I'll never forget preaching that 25th anniversary. When you walk into the church facility had a huge church facility you walk into. But before you walk in, there's a tower. And you go up into that tower, and at the top of the tower, it's glassed in all around. And you can see every point in the city. And you go into that tower, and there were Indian men and women on their faces, weeping over the city, crying for the city, asking God to move in the city. I said to myself, that's the secret of that church. That's the secret of that church. He asked me to come back 2 years later and preach a crusade in the stadium, preached a conference on revival there in the church, and I came back 2 years later for a crusade, and he met me at the airport, and I said, Pastor, how's your church doing? How are things going at the church? I said, you're still hanging on to that 6,000 you've got? He said, oh no, Sammy, we don't have 6,000 members. We have 10,000 members. And our 60 missions, they're no longer missions. They're full-fledged churches, and each one of them have at least 5 missions of their own. Well, I want to tell you what. They don't have a lot of wealth. They're in a community that's hostile. They're in a place that's dark. Millions of gods are worshipped. The Muslim cry to Allah goes up day and night there. But I want to tell you something. God has found a people who need Him. God has found a people who need Him, and they know they need Him. And they are desperate for Him. And they built that church on the basis of prayer. And I want to tell you, where I go in the world and I see God moving in churches and God working in churches and I see God sending revival to churches, in those places I always find somewhere a people who are praying.